Hello? Are we here? Yeah, we're live. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May meeting of the Historic Conservation Commission. I'm Gary Lader, Chair of the HCC, and I would like to introduce the commission. To my left is Jeff Long, our Historic Officer and Registered Architect. To my far left is Craig Evans, resident of the district. To my right is Todd Chambers, our architect with business interests in the district. And to my far right is Mike Simonson, our chief building inspector. Ordinance information is the purpose and intent of the city of Bethlehem to promote, enhance, and preserve historic resources and traditional community character for the education, cultural, economic, and general welfare of the public through the preservation, protection, and regulation of buildings in areas of historic interest or importance within the city which have been determined to be of local, state, or national significance. The way the meeting will unfold is the applicants will be taken in order. After identifying the project address and the presenters, our historic officer will provide a background on the building and any recommendations. At that time, the applicant will present their project and plan. The board will then address the project, allow public comment, if any, and ultimately create a motion to approve as presented, approve with modifications, table the project with clear recommendations, or deny the project with reasons for the denial and changes or improvements which would result in a positive recommendation. For public comment, there is a 3-minute time limit, and comments must be specific to attributes of the building only. Speakers are to announce themselves with their name and address before speaking. The HCC is a recommending board, and the results of our meeting will be presented to City Council, and their vote will be binding. Please do not forget to secure your permit from the permit office on the first floor of City Hall before you begin your project. Above all, I remind everyone to conduct themselves in a civil manner and always use a civil tone. The commission is here to help you with your project. We are a group of volunteers who are dedicated to historic preservation and restoration of older buildings in Bethlehem and beyond. If any commission members have a conflict of interest with any of the applications on tonight's agenda, please come forth at this time. Doesn't look like there is. And I'll ask everyone to sign in. And that brings us, sir, I guess you're our first applicant. Please come forward to the desk here. Just give us your name and sign in. And this is for 121 East 3rd Street, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
My name's Joseph Pearl, 330 Wedgwood Road, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Agenda item 1, the property location is 121 East 3rd Street. The building description, period, style, and defining features. This structure is actually multiple street numbers. It's officially 119 to 123. East 3rd Street is a detached 3-story brick masonry, mixed-use commercial and residential building with ornate brick, stone, and terracotta detailing, a prominent pressed metal upper cornice, arched upper windows, and altered storefronts. The building dates from the late 19th century, is an Italianate in style. The proposed alterations, the applicant proposes to install a new non-illuminated wall sign. My guideline citations for tonight's assessment include Secretary of Interior Standards number 9, that has to do with new additions, exterior alterations, etc. And the Bethlehem ordinance that Mr. Lader read at the beginning of tonight's meeting, as well as the Historic Conservation Commission guidelines specific for signage. My evaluation, the effect on the district, and recommendations. The certificate of appropriateness application indicates the intent to install a new non-illuminated wall sign, quote, to mirror existing sign at U&T, end quote. The proposed sign measures 34 inches tall by 105 inches wide. The sign material, quote, to be determined, end quote. And graphics are, quote, full color, digitally printed, end quote. The application is incomplete due to the lack of an accompanying scale drawing with elevation view depicting the building facade and the location of the proposed sign, which is indicated on the form as being required. The design of the sign includes graphics that are centered horizontally and vertically and surrounded by one bold and one thin offset pinstripe borders with so-called Chinese corner sets. The main text includes large, bold, an uppercase letter, the letter U, in a medium green color, stylized to represent a shopping cart with a push bar and two wheels. That's followed by a large, bold ampersand, the and symbol, also in medium green color. Thereafter is a large, bold, uppercase sans serif letter T, followed by a series of large, bold Chinese characters, all in deep orange color. There's a secondary text line that includes the words Asian market in small, bold, all uppercase sans serif lettering that's also italicized. And that is in warm white or ivory color, located within a thick band in a deep orange color. The sign background is warm white or ivory in color, while both pinstripe borders are deep orange in color. The proposed wall sign is appropriate pending clarification of several requests. We have no indication really of where the sign is to go. There is a photograph of the existing sign for UNT that's at 119 East 3rd Street. It says this is to mirror, but there are potentially several locations options, so it wasn't immediately clear. That would have been clarified had the required scale drawing with the elevation been included with the application. If it is to fit in the panels similar to the existing UNT sign, I did go back to the application and the assessment of that sign, and the requirement was that it fits just inside the raised molding in the sign band. I have no way of knowing if the proposed dimensions of this sign fit in the dimensions of the raised band, so that, in my opinion, requires some discussion or clarification with the applicant. There's no indication of the material of the sign. Our guidelines do not favor flexible signs, banners, etc. It doesn't specify exactly what kind of board, but it requires some kind of a rigid board. And then also there's no indication of the intended installation method. And as a reminder, if there are installation hooks that are there, we prefer they use them. If there's nothing there, we prefer things that are not visible. So no visible fasteners once the sign is installed. Adhesives are also shied down upon because of the damage they would do if the sign is ever removed. So those are my requests for clarification. When I did assess the site with a walk-by, I did notice that in 119 there is a window sign that's a sticker in the sign that this commission never assessed. And I've been requested always to point those kind of things out. In my opinion, the applicant, if it's the same as the person at 119, the window sign should probably be removed because there's no certificate. And I'm also stating that in case this applicant wants a window sticker, the understanding is that those do have to come in front of the commission as well. So that concludes my assessment.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Mr. Pearl, can you, number one, just clarify for us where the new sign's going to go? I think I could take a guess.
I think on the thing, I put a star in the panel.
So
Okay.
you're
Yeah.
saying in this panel.
Yeah, there's a star in the panel, which
Okay.
is identical to the other side. The dimensions are the exact same size as the other side because the panels were equal, which were approved by you guys.
Just for minutes, I can't put star same. Could you clarify just which of the panel? I'm sorry.
Well, how can there was more than one panel there. I mean,
Yeah, so could you say, was it the left one? Is it the center one?
It's
Is
the second panel from the right
Okay, thank you. Just
Yeah.
something that I know for the minutes. Thank you.
okay.
in the photograph. And you're able to mount this on a rigid substrate.
I have copies of the same picture, except it has the material on it. It's called CFP.
Okay, that's what the other
I
sign
have
is
the
printed on?
pictures with me tonight.
That's what the other sign is printed on?
Yes,
Okay.
exact same company, same identical lettering, everything's exactly the same, and the dimensions and location are equal to the other location and stuff.
And you're going to mount this with concealed fasteners?
Yes.
I have no other questions.
Okay, thank you.
I'm good.
Okay,
All
Sam?
right.
Yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
make a motion to approve the sign as presented, mounted on a rigid substrate to match the other existing sign, use concealed fasteners to mount it, and to fit within the raised panel area in the second panel from the right when facing the building, which mirrors the location of the existing sign on the facade.
And if there's any other interior or signage to be placed on the glass.
Yeah, if you want to put any more sign on the glass, you have to come back to us.
On the what?
On the glass.
No,
Yeah, that's not what the
it's not,
application is.
here's the thing,
Yeah.
I just came because it's my building. The businesses, that's what they do. I mean, I wanted to make sure the sign fits the same thing as the other sign.
Mhm.
Bless you.
Do we have a second on the motion?
Second.
Okay, let's put it to a vote. Craig Evans?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Aye.
Todd?
Aye.
Okay, very good.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
sir.
You guys want that material
As long
on
as
the
it
other
matches the
picture?
existing sign, we're good.
Okay. Sure.
Sure.
Oh, they're outside, good. Okay.
These are all the items that we
Thank
asked
you,
them to
too.
bring back to us, correct?
I think so, and then some.
There's some samples there. I put up by Gary's desk.
Aye.
Maybe I'll send it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
We're waiting for somebody to.
Oh, you have one more
away,
person?
but we can get started.
Oh, okay, good.
Just for clarification on the previous agenda item, after reading his supplement, it was misspoken. The rigid board is an ACM, an aluminum composite board. He had given
Better,
a
in
different
my
acronym.
opinion,
Okay,
honestly.
okay, all right, thanks.
Okay. 14 through 36 West 3rd Street, agenda item number 2. Building description, period, style, and defining features. The proposed 8-story hotel structure will include a series of entry-level glass storefronts with awnings at the front or north facade facing West 3rd Street and also at the rear or south facade facing the Greenway. 6 upper floor levels will include brick as well as EIFS facades punctuated by sets of windows organized according to hotel room layouts. A rooftop terrace with bar will complete the uppermost floor level, while a single-story porte cochere or carport at the western end of the site will serve as the main drop-off location for passenger vehicles. As a reminder, HCC is mandated with preserving the structures dating from the designated era of the Historic Conservation District, which is circa 1895 to 1950. Thus, when completed, this contemporary building will not be considered significant to the district. The proposed alterations, the applicant is returning for subsequent HCC assessments of various details associated with the proposed hotel structure, including, and I'm basing this on the narrative that was provided, storefront and window systems, awnings and canopies, signage and lighting. The guideline citations that I used for my assessment included the Bethlehem ordinance that Mr. Later read at the beginning of tonight's meeting, the Historic Conservation Commission design guidelines, specifically concerning new construction within the district. I'll just read just a very tiny portion that might be relevant to tonight. The HCC encourages new construction that preserves the cohesive ambiance of the Historic Conservation District with compatible, sympathetic, and contemporary construction, matching the setbacks of adjacent buildings on the streetscape, portions including size and scale, form, materials, roof configuration, details, and finishes. Should also address such concerns as shape and massing, rhythm and patterns, window and door openings, materials and textures, architectural details, as well as streetscapes. I also referenced the Historic Commission's design guidelines specific for storefronts, as well as the design guidelines for signage. And both of those two supplements include statements about awnings. My evaluation, the effect on the district, and the recommendations. The Certificate of Appropriateness application indicates the intent to satisfy the stipulation of the previous Certificate of Appropriateness that requires HC assessment of proposed facade details. Based on the supplemental narrative, select details intended for the current assessment include storefronts and window systems, awnings and canopies, as well as signage and lighting. During the meeting with the applicant on March 17, 2025, the HCC adopted a proposal that Bethlehem City Council issue a certificate of appropriateness identifying appropriate details for the proposed storefronts. So at their previous meeting, which was 3 months ago, they presented several components, and that formed a motion that went to City Council. Among that motion, and I'm not sure if it was lost on the applicant or maybe there's some details changed, I wasn't quite sure, but they did put it in the narrative, so I'm bringing it. The proposed storefront was a YKK YS45 FT storefront system with 2-inch wide vertical and horizontal divisions in a dark bronze factory applied finish. The glazing is center set, SunGuard SNX low E crystal gray glazing, which they confirmed last time is clear and not tinted, colored, or reflective. There is spandrel glass integrated into the storefronts along the eastern half of the West 3rd Street facade to screen the back of house functions. It also includes vinyl films installed on the outside glass surfaces that depict various historical images. So that was taken directly from the previous motion that went to council that was approved. And I reviewed the current set and didn't find any discrepancies or changes to that. So I'll open it up to them in a moment, but if there's no change, there's no reason to integrate those details into a new motion because they were already integrated previously. The drawing set, specifically drawing sheet A401, the applicant proposes the 2100 series aluminum thermal break fixed windows fabricated by Crystal Window and Door Systems. Now, we did not have that. I think it might have appeared, but they asked us not to assess it because they wanted to bring details. So the previous certificate does not include mention of any windows. As with the approved storefronts, the vertical and horizontal divisions have a dark bronze factory applied finish. Glazing is center set appropriately. And then they're proposing, and I see a sample in front of us, the same SunGuard low E crystal gray glazing, which they confirmed last time is not tinted, colored, or reflective. There were no written specifications or cut sheets for the proposed windows. So there's no mention of the dimensions of the window components. Previously, with the storefronts, they did call out dimensions. And for the motion, it's always important to have typical dimensions concerning that specific detail. It also should be noted that punched window openings are specifically mentioned in your guidelines as inappropriate. We have seen, however, the facades with these window types, and they've collaborated with you to give some division to these windows. It's just, I have to point out, and also for future reference, for potential future applicants, punch windows are considered not appropriate. Your guidelines state they should strive to use windows that are typical within your district. They would be either metal casements in some of the more industrial buildings, or double hung. However, I do call out the HCC recently recommended approval, similar punch window openings at a nearby, yet to be constructed contemporary structure. And again, we've seen these, just never assessed them. So simply for discussion purposes and ultimately the motion, we do need to discuss these so I can put some mention in the minutes. I'm stopping here for just a moment because even though this is one agenda item, if there were different applicants, this would probably be 7 or 8 agenda items. So right now, I've just spoken about storefronts and windows.
Okay.
I would gladly transition to awnings and canopies if you so desire, or we can open to discussion. Then we return to the next thing. Just a point of reference, after canopies and awnings, we also then have signage, and there are 5 signs. And then we also have lighting, and there are at least 2. So they seem maybe simple at first, but they do require individual discussions and rather
Okay.
lengthy motions. So I'll let you determine what you prefer.
Yeah, I like the idea of breaking it up, if that's okay with all of you. So,
Mhm.
I think it's easier to knock it out piece by piece.
Okay, the minutes I'm going to have continuous, but I'll make a mention that we broke it up. But I just want,
okay,
I don't want to break up the minutes with, my assessments with a discussion back and forth.
okay.
But it'll be noted duly.
So
Okay.
is that, so we should break now to talk about the windows?
If you so desire, yes.
Okay. And again, you're saying we approved storefronts at the last meeting.
Yes. So I quoted what you approved,
Okay,
and I cross-referenced that motion with what I saw, and I couldn't detect any difference. But they put it in the narrative, so I want to give them the opportunity to confirm there's no change, or if there's a change, we need to modify the previous motion.
okay. All right. All right, well, here you go. Tell us about the crystal window unit.
Sure. And I guess, just to clarify on the storefronts and both windows, I think there was a typo. So the glass samples that we provided, I think it said gray in the title. It's actually ultra clear. And I think that's the sample that was sent to you. And I brought a sample of that as well. So it is clear glass. So just to clarify that, I know that was the description that was in there. So I just want to make sure that's correct.
The sample has the clear glass.
Yes. And so that sample has the clear glass, and I think we sent you
Samples.
a sample of this
Oh,
as well,
oh,
which I'm
okay.
happy to pass this one around.
Yeah, that's,
Should be the same one. Yeah.
All right, but what you're proposing, you want to use the gray glass.
No,
No,
we
no,
use the clear.
he wants to use
We're
clear.
gonna use the clear.
It got
There was just a
captured.
typo.
Okay.
Typo
All right,
on
thank
our
you.
documents.
All right.
It got carried over to the narrative. So
Okay.
before we just go, so are the storefronts changing?
nothing's changing other than the glass, just
Okay.
making sure that
All right,
it's
okay.
it's clear and not gray. So.
So I'll defer to HCC how you want to deal with, if you want to just make mention within them, or if you want to pass a whole new component for the resolution, I leave it up
I'm
to you.
fine with making mention of it. If-
Mention it.
Because we went through the storefronts pretty extensively.
Okay.
Okay,
So now we're on to the windows.
Sure. Yeah, so the windows, crystal, aluminum, thermally broken window. We do have a sample over there. Again, it's the clear glass in the window itself. The color would be the dark bronze to match the storefront. Dimensions are 8 feet wide by 6'8" high. And then we do have 2 mullions in the middle that break it up, which you see on the elevations. They are a fixed window.
so are these inserted within mullions, these units here? I mean, in other words, like what we're seeing is the finished frame?
What you're seeing is the finished frame. Yeah.
Okay.
Just the exterior, though. The,
Just the ex-
the dividing mullions are integral to the unit.
The dividing mullions would actually be part of the frame. So you would still get this profile that you see
Okay.
here. Yeah, they're not getting rolled. The glass is-
The sight line,
Oh, dimension of the mullions, they're an inch and yeah, uniform apart here.
That's what's shown on the enlarged elevation typical storefront.
No, so the enlarged elevation of the typical storefront, that would be the YKK system. So that
Oh, okay.
those are 2-inch mullions. I guess we didn't, when we had submitted this set, we didn't have our large window types finished yet, but the dimensions that you see, I think there's a plan dimension that gives you that 8-foot width, and then we also have the height dimension in the wall section, and then obviously the elevations depicts graphically the divisions.
is it the intent to use this crystal window system for all of the openings above the first floor?
Yes,
So
with
effectively W1 through W12 or 13?
yes. The only exception would be at the rooftop venue where we have windows out to the outdoor dining area, seating area. So that would be a YKK product. We probably would have to use the window wall system there, given the height of the building, but we would match the same system as the storefront.
And that's on the north elevation.
Yes, yep, that's on the 3rd Street elevation.
Is that depicting like a glass railing there or windbreak along the parapet, or is that, we're seeing the,
So we're working through that detail. We are most likely going to do a glass windbreak there, and that's what we're showing in sections. So we'd have a 2-foot, I think we're showing a 2-foot parapet right now, and then the glass windbreak above that, just to maximize our views there.
but we're not here to talk about that tonight or approve that.
I think we would maybe want to talk about that at the end.
Okay.
But yeah.
So is the mullion sight line 1 3/4 consistently for the larger openings as well?
Yes.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay. Craig, any questions?
Not at this point, no.
Okay, all right. And Jeff, to move this along, should we do motions with each discussion, or should we put that all at the end?
Oh, I leave that to your discretion. If you feel like the discussion is fresh and you're ready, and you don't lose details, I can capture that, no problem. Sure,
Okay.
I'm prepared either
All
way.
right. All right. Maybe this seems simple enough. Why don't you keep going?
Detail 3, awning detail on drawing sheet A401. Depicts fabric awning with no applied graphics attached to powder-coated aluminum frames installed with 6-inch steel studs. The awnings project approximately 24 inches out over the public right-of-way, and the overall height is 48 inches. Exterior elevations on drawing sheets A201 and A202 confirm that the awnings are appropriately installed beneath the lower cornice, appropriately aligned with the widths of the associated storefronts, and appropriately have no open ends. There's no written specifications or cut sheets for the proposed awnings, so the applicant should confirm that about the intended fabric color or colors. Again, we don't assess colors, but just so I can capture it in the motion. And also confirm that the fabric is Sunbrella canvas or comparable to satisfy a requirement in your guidelines. Again, no synthetic materials or rigid metal covers for awnings. Elevation drawings on drawing sheet A201 call out a supplemental detail for the proposed entrance canopies, one at the north facade facing West 3rd Street and one at the south facade facing the nearby Greenway, found on drawing sheet A203. So we have elevations and then there's a detail. So the elevations are on 201 and then the detail is called out on A203. The applicant did provide a supplemental cut sheet for Super Lumideck by Mapes architectural canopies, which is described as a, quote, all extruded pre-engineered canopy with a corrugated deck and aluminum non-rusting finish. Applicant on the cut sheets indicates an 8-inch J option as the preferred fascia for the canopy, and relevant drawing sheets depict hanger rod supports. However, the applicant should also confirm the critical dimensions. I estimated the projection out over the street, but I'd prefer that they confirm that because there were some options there. So we don't have any dimensions. Just for the minutes, I need a width, a depth, and the intended finish or colors. There were several options. Again, we're not assessing them per se, yes or no, but just for the motion. It also should be noted that relevant design guidelines do not identify rigid canopies as appropriate or inappropriate. They're not mentioned anywhere within them for the district. However, HCC recently recommended approval of similar metal canopies at a couple of nearby contemporary structures. So here again, I can't cite anything, so discussion is warranted. So those are my two paragraphs, the one about the awnings and the one about the canopies. Thereafter, I switched to signs. There are 5 signs. I'll gladly go to those, or we can take a return back to the applicant.
I think we should ask questions about the canopies
Sure.
before proceeding.
Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
Color for the Mapes canopies,
Yes.
bronze.
Yes, it'll be a dark bronze.
Thought I'd take a
Yep.
shot. In the And can you confirm the dimension off the face of the building, please, to the front of the canopy?
Yeah, it'll be 5 feet off the face of the building.
How do these drain?
There's a
Oh,
there's a
okay.
detail.
Todd's
on-
going to show
It's
the.
A203.
Yes.
Oh, on 203?
Yeah, you can confirm that it's just the little
Yeah,
scupper
it's just a little
thingy.
scupper that's integrated to the on the
That's what
channel around
that
the
is.
perimeter. Yeah.
Okay.
And we would connect that to a downspout, and so it's not scupping straight down the edge of the canopy. Typically, we connect that to a downspout that turns back to the building and spills on.
Oh, okay, because there's a difference. I think that what I assumed from the elevation was it was just the scupper and that was going to flow down onto the sidewalk. Is
Well,
that
we
not
can-
the case?
We can, I guess, have a discussion about that. I mean, typically, and I don't think we've finished that detail, but typically we like to catch it in a downspout, in a gutter in a downspout, and so it's not spilling off the.
So then you would run the downspout where?
We would run it, run the gutter back along the face of the canopy, and then run the downspout down along the face of the building.
Face-
If I may, because that wasn't mentioned and there's no drawing of that, the guidelines do state that appropriate downspouts are round rather than shaped. That's
Okay. Yeah,
okay.
that's and we would match, the color of the downspout to the canopy.
And then are you tying the downspouts into subgrade drainage or discharging that water to the sidewalk?
Typically on a canopy that small, we would just discharge it at the sidewalk.
Okay. Am I seeing that the canopy basically stops at the masonry and doesn't extend back to the storefront beyond? Or is that gap between them going to be filled?
I think that gap between them would be filled. Again, that's a detail we need to
Well, it's
finalize, but
it's recessed though, right?
it is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm,
I'm just not, typically with these pre-engineered canopies, I don't think there can be the gap. I think that, and the storefront will probably break there because we'll need structure at the back side of that canopy. That's, supporting the cantilever of the canopy.
And flashing and all that
Yeah.
fun stuff. Yeah.
would this canopy work just as well if it was just slightly sloped forward so you didn't need gutters and downspouts? I mean, again, if you're just draining it onto the sidewalk anyway, just hate for you to have to stick a downspout on the face of the building,
Yeah, we can evaluate that.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so I think we got our answers on the fabric canvas and we had the depth of the Ridgemel
Just a
canopy.
comment on that. I'm not sure that if I were a pedestrian, I would be happy with the water running off the front, having to dance around it. I think the downspout in the back is a much more,
Yeah, I mean, that's
Pedestrian
typically why
friendly.
we don't, slope. Typically, we don't slope them front to back because then you have the water,
Right.
sheeting off. Yeah.
Questions about the fabric awning? Do you have a color for the powder coated aluminum frame? And is it bronze?
We don't, but yeah, bronze would be what we would probably go with to match everything else. But we don't have a sample with
For the
us.
fabric color you're talking about, Tom?
No, I'm talking
for
about the
the frame.
powder coating for the frame.
Oh, okay.
And then what about the fabric?
So the fabric, we would do a dark gray like you see in the rendering on the cover sheet. And that would,
Are the ends of the canopy open?
the ends are open, yes.
Do you have a manufacturer for the canvas?
We do not. Typically, we rely on the awning provider. Normally,
Okay.
with the contractors we work with, there's a couple different installers that they work with, but we can, if you need to see a spec of that, we can get you a spec on, what we've, or two specs if there's, options.
After,
Okay.
after we.
All right, good. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, we seem to always be asking for Sunbrella. Maybe it has to do with flame spread and all the code
Fade
requirements and
resistance,
things
I
like
think,
that.
is the big one for us.
Was it?
Fade resistance, I
Fade
think, would be the
resistance,
big
yeah.
one for us. Yeah. Mike will catch the.
is there any signage whatsoever on the awnings?
No, there's no signage on the awnings.
All right, anything else on the canopies then? Okay, Jeff, I think you can move on to the next item.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary. What's the projection on that awning? Yeah, I see you have the height dimension at 4 feet and it,
I think he said
I believe it's 2 feet.
okay, good enough for me.
Thanks, Todd. Go ahead, Jeff.
So now we're switching to signage. Drawing sheet A203 includes 5 detailed drawings of proposed signage types. Sign 1, high-level front. Sign 2, 3rd Street entrance. Sign 3, front entrance canopy. Sign 4, flag/blade. Sign 5, greenway entrance. Sign 1 measures approximately 57.5 inches tall by 184.5 inches wide. Top of the sign is installed approximately 70 inches down from the top of the upper cornice. The main text line is composed of individual letters that spell out tempo in large, bold, sans serif, all uppercase lettering. There's a diagonal stripe that extends the central upstroke of the letter M above and below the text line. Beneath the main text and right of the center is a secondary text line composed of individual letters that spell out by Hilton in small, bold serif lettering. Relevant design guidelines describe appropriate signage within the district as graphics applied to rigid signboards. We saw that at the previous application, as well as individual letters pin-mounted into the building facades. So the proposed pin-mounted lettering is appropriate. The application offers no indication of the intended material for the letters or the proposed installation method, so clarifications are needed. I do note the guidelines for signage recommend taking advantage of mortar joints for mounting locations to facilitate future repairs in case signage is ever updated or replaced. Supplemental perspective drawing on the cover sheet A001 depicts this sign as being located above the uppermost windows on the western end of the proposed building. So you see that in the perspective on the cover. Otherwise, you have no connection. It's just a sign floating in a detail. So, and at that perspective, they seem to have dimension. The HCC traditionally limits thickness of pin-mounted letters to maximum 2 inches. Dimension between the backs of the letters and the front of the facade should also be confirmed. So if they stand proud, we would also want to capture that dimension. Sign 2 measures approximately 22 inches tall by 74 inches wide. The main text line is centered atop the front edge of the entrance canopy to be located at the north facade that faces West 3rd Street. I'm combining this paragraph with sign 5 because sign 2 and sign 5 are very similar, if not the same. Sign 5 also measures approximately 22 inches tall by 74 inches wide. The main text line is centered atop the front edge of the entrance canopy at the south facade, which faces the greenway. As with the previous sign, the main text line of these 2 signs is composed of individual letters that spell out tempo in large, bold, sans serif, all uppercase lettering. Yet again, the diagonal stripe extends the central upstroke of the letter M above and below the text. Affixed to the front, so those are on top of the canopy. Affixed to the front canopy fascia beneath the main text and right of center is the secondary text line composed of individual letters that spell out by Hilton in small, bold serif lettering. Relevant design guidelines do not describe lettering attached to metal canopies. As I stated before, they don't mention metal canopies, so they don't mention signage above the metal canopies. However, the HCC recently recommended approval of similar lettering atop metal canopies at a couple of nearby contemporary structures, so discussion is warranted. The certificate of appropriateness application offers no indication of the intended material for those letters or the proposed installation method, so clarifications are needed. As stated before, the HCC traditionally limits the thickness of pin-mounted letters to maximum 2 inches thick. Sign 3 measures approximately 22 inches tall by 74 inches wide. The main text is centered within the vertical face of the rigid entrance canopy at the passenger drop-off on the western corner of the proposed building. As with the previous signs, the main text line is composed of individual letters that spell out tempo, yet again in large, bold, sans serif, all uppercase lettering. The diagonal stripe extends the central upstroke of this letter M above and below the text. Below the main text and right of center is the secondary text line composed of individual letters that spell out by Hilton in small, bold serif lettering. The application offers no indication of the intended material for this lettering or for the proposed installation methods. As I stated before, HCC traditionally limits the thickness of pin-mounted letters to maximum 2 inches. Sign 4 is a double-sided blade sign that measures approximately 172 inches tall by 36 inches wide, with text lines centered vertically that measure approximately 120 inches tall. The thickness of the sign is not indicated. The offset dimension between the sign and the main facade seems to be approximately 6 inches based on the detail. Detail 4 on drawing sheet A203 indicates that the proposed sign is centered vertically at the building's 4th floor level, while a notation about vertical signage on detail 2 of the north elevation on drawing sheet A201 indicates that this signage is horizontally slightly off-center on the north facade facing West 3rd Street at the western end tower. So when you stand in front of the building, looking at it from West 3rd Street, they've referenced it themselves as the tower, the far right portion, the west tower, and this is just off-center vertically between the 3rd, 4th, and 5th floor levels. The main text line is oriented vertically and spells out tempo in large, bold sans serif, all uppercase lettering. As with the others, there's a diagonal stripe that extends the central upstroke of the letter M in both directions. Centered beneath the main text is the secondary text line oriented horizontally that spells out by Hilton in small, bold serif lettering. The sign background is black or seems to be black in color, with triangular details at the top and bottom in medium gray color. The upper triangle also includes the figures 755 in black color. However, the street address is 14th through 36 West 3rd Street, so I wasn't quite sure where that 755 came from. So clarification is warranted. The application offers no indication of any intended materials for the proposed blade sign or the intended installation method. I will note that design guidelines indicate that appropriate blade signs within the district are hung from a decorative iron scroll bracket. Those, however, reference to storefronts, typically something on the 1st floor level. This is obviously much higher. And traditionally, HCC limits sign thicknesses to 2 inches. As I mentioned, there's no thickness indicated in the drawings, so discussion is definitely warranted. The supplemental drawings depict lettering for various signs described above as bright white. However, the HCC traditionally considers warm white or ivory as appropriate rather than bright white in the district, and also encourages signage to include an offset pinstripe detail and a complementary color around the sign perimeter. Now, some of these signs don't have borders, so that might not be relevant, but some of these signs do have. So I felt it was important to point out, again, typically to frame a sign, you oftentimes request some kind of an offset pinstripe. The supplemental drawings do not indicate if various signs are internally illuminated. According to your guidelines, that would be inappropriate. If illumination is desired, the applicant might consider backlighting each letter, which would result in a halo effect. That is not defined in the design guidelines, but HCC over the past few years has indicated that would be considered appropriate. If there is lighting integrated for the signage, design guidelines indicate that the bulbs are to be, quote, low wattage warm illumination. So if LED lights are intended, the HCC traditionally considers maximum 3000 Kelvin color temperature as appropriate. The relevant design guidelines also indicate that no conduits, raceways, or junction boxes can be visible on the exterior facades of any illumination. So those are the 5 signs.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we start with sign number 1 and, clarify for us lettering thickness and material and so on.
Sure. So, material, they would be an acrylic material. And I guess to clarify on the lighting discussion, so the direction from Hilton would be that those signs would be lit. And I do have another document I can share with you, or an image from that showing the signs it do look like
Mhm.
illuminated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Could you
And,
clarify which ones would be internally illuminated? I'm sorry.
that would be signs 1, 3, 2, and 5. Sign 4 has illumination around. Around. That's not the exact sign, but this is a ground mounted sign, but it's this.
So is that like backlit, or is that actually an LED strip that's wrapped around it?
So I'm kind of concerned about approving the signage package as we see it without the required details.
Understood.
I'm willing to approve the configuration with the understanding that once you have your signage package finalized, you come back to
Yeah,
us.
I was gonna
Talk
say,
about details like construction of the
Right.
blade sign, thickness of letters, standoffs, illumination, all
Too
of
many,
that.
too many details.
There's too many
yeah, I
variables.
was gonna say, I think we just want guidance on the placement, the size at this point.
Placement,
And then our signage vendor would produce drawings and details
Yeah,
and all of
perfect.
that stuff for you guys to review.
I personally don't have any concerns with the placement of any of the signage. I think it looks good and
Jeff, how
appropriate.
would we deal with this to separate that particular element from, motion to,
In my opinion, you wouldn't pass a motion. You would simply, it would be captured in the minutes. As Mr. Chambers just said, he has no problem with the placements. The applicant gets the
Okay.
minutes, then they can move forward with that if you're okay with it. Ultimately, they would show up in a motion. I don't think we've ever had a partial, I wouldn't call it a partial motion. I don't know if we've ever had signage that was approved in multiple
we
motions.
have had other elements, but
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we.
Yeah, I mean, I think correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but you'd be happy with this commission telling you that placement looks good.
Yes.
Bring us back the details and we'll deal with it then. It wouldn't be included in this COA,
I think that's fine. Yeah.
right?
I'm hearing we don't have the details to satisfy you tonight, and I understand. This package is pretty prescribed by Hilton.
Yeah, I get it. And that's part of my discomfort because when I see
Well,
some of that, it
But
like the
I
blade
just-
sign in particular, that, I mean, I think it looks pretty good, but it's not part of the package. So I think we'd like to review exactly what you want. And does this reflect exactly what they want?
You mean the signage that we have on our
Yeah.
package here?
Dimensionally.
Dimensionally, it
and
does. Yeah.
graphically.
And graphic, we've,
Dimensionally and graphically, again, I'm okay with what you have shown.
Right.
But details in terms of construction,
Understood.
yeah,
um,
understood.
Yeah, I just don't. have that.
like the actual fabrication of the letters and how far they project off the sides, those kinds of details, I think, are what we need
Right. And
to see and just,
we need to
give you the
engage
nod.
a sign vendor.
yeah, you absolutely do.
John, when in the schedule would we be able to present that?
Just
Just approximately.
I would say July, August.
Do-
Yeah, we need to
do you need to have that approved to satisfy Hilton
Yeah, they have
for
to
the,
sign
for the
off. Yeah, so they'll have
project?
to sign
Like
off
to
on the,
advance or like,
Not-
is that-
not at this point. I think when we get to installation. So they've seen what you've seen
Mhm.
and they're good with that placement. But then, yeah, they'll have to sign off on the
They'll
package
review the-
provided by the sign vendor.
The-
Yeah, I
the
mean,
submittals by the sign
Yeah,
vendor.
I think so.
We'll provide you the submittal.
you could be erecting steel and come in and do the signage details is what I'm saying, you know,
Right.
I don't,
Yeah.
don't
Yeah, this
see that
wouldn't
holding your
prohibit us from
project
getting
up.
a building permit
Right.
because it's really
It's
the signage
finished
permit.
details.
Exactly.
I'd like, Jeff, I'd like some clarification on how we've been dealing with internally lit signage. I think we differentiate between an internally lit box sign and I don't know, are we allowing individual letters that are internally lit?
It's been a matter of interpretation. The guidelines say no internally illuminated signage. The understanding was when the guidelines were created, it was specific to box signs because that was basically the only option of internal illuminated signs. When I first started, we had some applicants who came with individual letters, channel letters, and the commission said no. Over time, however, you have changed the concept, what I would call the definition of a box sign, still the kind of cliche 1960s, 70s box sign with a changeable front with internal fluorescence that would, I think, be directly in contradiction to your guidelines. We have seen, because technology has changed, internally illuminated box signs that you recently, the first time as far as I can remember, did consider appropriate and put forth to city council. I'm sorry, I don't have that right in front of me.
Yeah, there was something
Um,
relatively recently.
Yeah.
like that,
Yes.
right?
So this body has changed a bit over time because technology has changed. So I cannot tell you, and unfortunately, I can't say it's not an easy yes or no answer. It's a matter of interpretation. And my job is to read you the guidelines you're allowed to interpret. In preparation for the next time they come, I can pull up that previous
Okay,
applicant. It wasn't too long ago. It was maybe 2 or 3 months. It might have even been when they were last in front of us. I can't remember.
yeah, it seemed pretty recent.
I will say it was much smaller scale.
Yeah,
It was a traditional sign of perhaps 2 by 3 feet. And this is, we did have something this large come up.
Blade sign on,
And you collaborated with the applicant to change from a blade sign to something that was affixed to the building
mhm.
as a compromise.
Yeah, and that was much larger too.
It was comparable to the scale of this one.
Oh, is
yes.
it? Okay.
Yes.
The one I thought we saw recently, it seemed like the difference was the panel was cut out of metal and entirely masked off the light.
So yeah, again, until we get the package, it's hard to get
Okay.
too much into detail, but you're correct. It was a solid cabinet, I will call it, that the letters were routed out, and then the routing had an acrylic inside and illumination that allowed the illumination to come through. But as far as I remember, that was the first time you ever considered something like that appropriate.
Okay, thanks
Sure.
for that. Okay, so I guess long story short, I think we're all fine with the general layout and size and location of the signage, and you'll come back next time with the details.
if they're more comfortable, you can poll us
Oh,
on, and I would concur with what you just said, but
Okay.
you know,
okay, so there you have it. I think you got your comfort level, I hope.
Mention.
Right.
So now we switch to proposed light fixtures. Elevation drawings on drawing sheet A201 depict proposed light fixtures that are centered between the entry-level storefronts. Drawing sheet A401 offers a more detailed drawing of a typical storefront that also includes the same depiction of the proposed light fixtures. The applicant provides supplemental cut sheets for Sentinel wall sconce by Beta Calco, I hope I pronounced that correctly, fabricated from die cast and extruded aluminum with a bronze metallic textured finish and opaque polycarbonate diffuser. The proposed fixture measures approximately 51 inches tall by 7.5 inches wide by 4 inches deep. The provided specifications indicate there are several light modules. It was a little hard for me to know if they're one or the other, or maybe all combined. So there's a front lit version, a downlight version, an uplight version, and an angled version. They didn't check on one or the other, so perhaps they might clarify their preference or a combination. The applicant also provides supplemental cut sheets for a different wall sconce. That's a Razor RD wall surface sconce, also by Beta Calco, fabricated from die cast aluminum with bronze metallic textured finish. The proposed fixture measures approximately 7 inches tall by 2 inches wide by 5 inches deep. The intended installation locations for this fixture, however, are not evident from the provided elevation drawings, at least as far as I could see. So clarification is needed. The specifications indicate that, yet again, there are several light modules. There's a downlight version, an uplight version, and an angled version. However, the applicant's preferred module is not indicated. As stated previously, the design guidelines for exterior lighting encourage bulbs that provide, quote, low wattage warm illumination. Therefore, if LED lights are intended for both fixture types, the HCC traditionally considers maximum 3000 Kelvin color temperature as appropriate. The relevant guidelines also indicate there are no conduits, raceways, or junction boxes visible on the exterior facades. So that's a conclusion of those two light fixtures. I did have in closing a couple of other things.
Okay.
It was already referenced by Mr. Chambers, but as potentially for another date. The applicant previously agreed to provide details of the proposed porte cochere or the carport for HCC consideration. And there are drawing sheets A421, A422, and A423 that offer a lot of details that we've never seen before. Similarly, the applicant agreed to provide details of the proposed glass balustrade at the roof deck along the north facade facing West 3rd Street. Mr. Chambers called that out, and we see that on drawing sheet A105. It references it as a, quote, post-supported glass windscreen system surrounding exterior seating area on the rooftop plan. So we have mention of both of those, but the narrative didn't call out either one of those. So it was not clear to me if the applicant was prepared at this time to discuss. We've already heard they're going to come back concerning the glass balustrade. I don't know if they're prepared to talk about the porte cochere. I didn't assess it because it wasn't called out, but I did notice a significant number of drawings associated with that detail.
Yeah, and we would like to
Yes.
discuss the porte cochere.
So with that comment, the two lighting fixtures, porte cochere, and the glass balustrade, that concludes my assessment.
Take them in order.
I think the lighting
What
is
was that?
probably the
We'll take them in order, in that order.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll save
Sounds
the-
good.
We'll save the rooftop glass for the
So I guess the Sentinel lighting, we would be looking at the up and down lighting option, as well as the front illumination lighting. As far as color, I think we had noted that, or talked about that previously, the 3000 Kelvin. So
Okay.
we'd be looking at that color. The material of the fixture itself, other than the illuminating panel would be a dark bronze. And Jeffrey had already mentioned the locations on the elevations. I think those are pretty clearly defined. The other fixture is on the elevations, but given the
You're small.
size of the fixture, it's kind of small. Yeah, it's hard to see.
Yeah,
Um,
I think I see where they
and
are.
it's on between the 4th and 5th floor, and then, or sorry, the 3rd and 4th floor on some locations on the tower, and the 6th and 7th floor on the tower, and then on the main portions of the building, it's the between the 4th and 5th floor and the 6th and 7th floor. And the intent with those lights again would also be the up and down light to light the brick there in between the windows.
What's the light spread on those? Like how far vertically?
It doesn't really.
Doesn't
say.
yeah.
Do you know what? I'd like to know what beam angles you're going to use on both fixtures.
Okay.
It's not. It's more curiosity. I don't think it's going to impact a thumb up or a thumb down.
Yeah. I'll be honest, other than identifying the fixtures with our electrical engineer and lighting consultant, we haven't figured out the exact angles yet, but we can certainly let you know what those would be when we determine those.
So you got two options. I think it's like a flood or a. If you look at the Starbucks on page 2 of the Razor, the ones that are not on that
Gotcha.
entrance feature, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
uplight
yep.
is 3 degrees and the downlight
so-
is 75. So it's which
So-
effect you want.
So
Yeah.
it would be the 75, the more of a wash of the wall.
The narrow one,
Yes.
the line or a wash. Like for-
It would be more of the line because of where we're placing it
Yeah.
between the windows. We
so
don't want
that'd be the
wash
3
to-
degree.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I said 75. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
3.
I'd like to ask for the dark sky friendly option.
Where do you see that one?
It's right here. Yeah,
That's down only then.
Yeah, that's down.
that's okay.
I think our intent with those was to get some wash, up
Of
the
course,
face of
yeah,
the
of
building.
course.
Yeah.
So, locate another one higher up and you're covered. And any other questions on lighting?
The only other question I had or concern is the proximity of the 2 Razor lights on the north side of the corner tower being so close to that vertical signage.
Okay.
Those 2 also don't really fit with the overall pattern I think you have on the facade there, right? The other ones are, I don't know the dimension, right? But it's 2 bays, right? Between the windows, or 2 windows between the lights, if you will.
Yep.
And then that one skips to 3. So if you could flip those 2 on the other side, like kind of on the eastern side of that tower, you know what I mean? So then your bay spacing of the lighting is consistent across that facade. You don't have that large gap at the end.
Okay.
And then that puts it away from the vertical
Yeah.
sign, which is going to have its own illumination. So you really don't want the Razor interfering with that anyway.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we can adjust the placement of this.
Anything else for lighting?
Not for me. What was the next item? Glass balustrade?
Porte cochere.
Corsair share, okay.
I will offer that I did take a look at these before Jeff brought it up and was very pleased to see aluminum profiles and aluminum cladding. I was kind of afraid it was going to be like EFS but I looked at them pretty closely and I think that the detailing of this canopy and porte cochere really works well for the district.
Okay.
And for
Yeah,
the
and I mean,
architecture of the building.
Our intent is something
Yeah.
attractive there.
Yeah.
you know, the guest facing.
I know that these aluminum cladding systems are not inexpensive, but it is absolutely the appropriate material for this type of canopy. You've done a nice job at detailing with spacing the reveals. And I really like the batten approach at the front door. It's going to add a nice level of detail to that entrance. So kudos.
Thank you. And we do have, they weren't in the materials samples that we sent, but we do have material samples if you want to see those
You know,
colors.
as I say all that, the only other question I have is on A423, your reflected ceiling plan. You show what I assume are reveals in that horizontal soffit.
Mhm.
I'm anticipating that you're going to need those in the vertical, like face
Correct.
of the elevation as well. So I would just request that you align those,
Yes.
right?
Right.
So it comes across the horizontal and then turns up the vertical.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Is it bronze?
Not entirely.
Okay.
But close. Yeah. So this is the wood material. So it'd be the soffit on the porte cochere, and then it also would be the.
Okay, so you're talking about it's the
Yes,
longboard.
yeah.
Yep,
And there
cool.
would also then be the beams.
And is this the profile? So it's like a shiplap type effect when they come together?
Yes.
Yeah, very nice. You want to see it, Mike?
And then this lighter color would be the fascia of the porte cochere itself.
So this piece?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And then this is what we would do on the piece. I've got actually got two.
Fancy. Yeah, give him that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Which one is which?
Sure. Yeah, I can write them on the.
This one's on the entrance canopy.
Yes, that's the entrance.
And this
And
one,
that's the porte cochere.
the fascia, and this is
That's
the ceiling,
soffit,
the
Yeah.
soffit.
Yep. And
Okay.
it's also the beams under the entry canopy. Do the same color. And it
Huh?
would be.
It's sharp.
This would be the profile of the beams,
This one.
obviously not in this
Yeah.
color, but.
Okay.
I mean, usually it's like brake metal. It's crap.
That would be in the walnut as well.
Yes. Yep.
What is that in?
Those are those exposed.
Oh,
beams.
okay.
What's that?
Jeff, I guess.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, I think Todd did. I don't know if we have a way to write on this one
Yeah.
without a Sharpie.
Pen's not going to work. And the intent is to use the same, we'll talk about the column enclosures, right? Because they do intersect both of those, both the porte cochere and the entrance canopy. So what would the color of those be?
I believe our intent would be the dark or the lighter
The silvery?
silver to match the porte cochere.
Are we up to the glass balustrade?
Unless anybody has other comments about the porte cochere.
Yeah, well, there's a bit to digest on that, but I think we covered the main things.
We have no discussion on hardscaping or paving or anything underneath that porte cochere.
Yeah, I was just looking at the floor plan. And
That's a good point, Craig.
yeah, I can't recall ever
We don't have
talking
all
about
that.
like hardscaping or,
A couple of places that came up,
That's
and one
what
of
we
them
just-
was next to Seven Sirens, where the parking lot was.
So there are some requirements by Hilton for some materials under the porte cochere. We were just talking about that. We just reviewed that with our civil engineer.
So that's appearing on the civil set that's
It
being
is.
submitted to the city
okay,
Is it asphalt?
pavers.
It would be a paver in the parking spaces, along the recess
It kind of
area.
Yeah.
Yep.
So asphalt and then pavers.
And then there would be a section of pavers leading you into the entry.
Anything in terms of like building benches or planters, or is there anything of that sort that you would envision there?
Not on these
Not-
plans. I
yeah.
mean, the hotel, we didn't include anything, John,
No.
in this location.
No, we didn't have anything
Yeah.
included.
And is it a curb cut? I'm wondering.
So that entire curb of that parking area would be a flush curb.
Zero reveal,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
No, but I mean a curb cut at the driveway entrance from the street, right? Because I don't think would the city want that asphalt? I mean, this is kind of an aside.
They've seen all the plans.
Okay.
We've
That
coordinated
would come down to
everything.
like the land development portion.
Yeah.
of the
We've
plan.
coordinated all that. with the
And those
city.
pavers are only in that parking area. There's still asphalt in the drive area.
Right. The drive, yes.
okay, are we good then?
I'm good with the porte
Okay.
cochere. Yeah.
Let's move upstairs.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about the railing.
Sure. I was gonna say, I think one of the plans shows a image.
105.
Yeah, A105 gives you an idea of the system there. So it's a post-mounted system with the glass inserted in between the posts. It's set back off of the parapet, slightly off of the parapet there. Honestly, that image that you see gives a good indication of the look that we're going for right now, or at least we have detailed in these drawings. I think we're still finalizing the exact height. Right now we have 2 feet of parapet. We may lower it so that the parapet is just slightly, say, 8 to 10 inches above the pedestal paver system there, with the glass railing then coming down to that paver system.
Parapet would be outboard of the glass railing.
Correct.
Glass railing, posts are not mounted to the parapet.
They are not. They are mounted to the roof structure. And they would be, glass panels would be 6 feet. The top of the panels would be 6 feet tall from the pedestal paver system.
That's what's showing on A201, is that correct?
Correct.
Did you say the glass panels are 6 feet tall?
6 feet tall. Yep.
That's honestly my only concern
Yeah.
is the height above the roof.
Often, we really kick that around. 7 feet is not uncommon. We feel that's too tall. So 6
Mm-hmm.
so 5 is probably the judgment call. We've got a great restaurant consultant we're working with here. They are Hilton's and Marriott food and beverage design operations preferred vendor consultants, and they know these spaces. They've done some of the first tempos in the U.S. And so anyways, we're really making these fine tuning decisions in coordination with them, and of course Hilton reviews everything. But the judgment call was 6 feet. Feels about right. And that's certainly comparable. Now our Marriott in downtown Lancaster that has a rooftop venue, that's 12th floor. We're probably closer to 7 there.
Yeah, I think that's
it's
7.
7.
Yeah.
There will be no signage on this glass.
No.
No vinyl cut letters put on this glass.
No, we want people to enjoy. I mean, we're putting a lot into this. No.
There would be no top rail to it either, is there?
No.
Just out of curiosity, what's that height based on? I mean, I would have said, no, why not just make it like typical guardrail height?
Because I think they want it as a windbreak.
Yeah,
It's
we're
not
looking at it
windbreak,
as a
too.
windbreak. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Exactly right. That's exactly right.
So you don't have a definite height as of yet?
We're leaning to the 6 feet. Yeah.
So
I'm sorry, Mike, what was the question?
Yeah,
So I guess
I'm
we can kind
sorry.
of do the windbreak like we did the signs, like we're okay with it in theory, and let them bring back a firm dimension. And
But okay, let's do that.
Is there just so?
If you drop the parapet, now we're going to see more of that glass, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, no, honestly,
Yeah,
we're still working through those
I'd
details.
rather
and
you
what's the-
finish it up,
yeah.
finish it out, and get the recommendations to your restaurant consultant. And it sounds like you've already done some of that homework,
Yeah,
but
we're doing a lot.
um,
This is a
yeah.
very intricately planned bespoke space up there. We're really trying to get it right. And, it's important. So while we're on this floor, there's one other element to the floor that we do need to bring to your attention. It's a little bit of a departure from where we left off in the last meeting with regard to height. I mean, I don't get anyone alarmed, but we want to talk to you about it a little bit for the enjoyment of the folks who are going to enjoy that space. We want to talk about some type of cover on that outdoor patio. Our initial plan was to have it fully exposed.
Yeah.
But again, working with the restaurant consultant, talking it through with Hilton, our own operations folks, really kicking this around. We felt that some type of canopy cover would be beneficial there. We've explored a lot of different options. And this is something that, again, we're going to come back to with you, but we found something that, excuse me, we think we like and that we want to present to you again in more detail after we've refined it, but it wouldn't be fair not to give you a feel for the direction we're going tonight. This is a pergola type structure that we've installed in other venues. It's a nice product. It's a kind of delegated design, and we would have the ability through a louver system that would be electronically operated to open and close the louvers to kind of provide shade when it's needed, provide, screening from the elements when it's needed, and keep it open when the conditions are really nice. So that's what we're thinking. We feel that's kind of the softest touch. But it is different than certainly. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. It's a departure from what we talked about before. It's really just, again, based on all the work we're putting into this space and the thought. And I wasn't, it wasn't on my radar screen the last time we came in here. We certainly would have showed it to you. Now, let's just talk a little bit about dimension. And John, this comes in, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when we were here the last time, we had talked about that 16-foot, offset. So we still have, the 16-foot wide strip there of that outdoor seating area. The intent that we're looking at right now, and Tony said this is relatively new to our radar. We're exploring covering that entire extent of that seating area. We don't have the exact placement of columns. We think we can, offset the columns that would be closest to 3rd Street and, cantilever part of that front coverage to help soften that edge as much as we can. But yeah, we don't have
So,
those
yeah,
details.
we
at this
talked
point.
about, and I'll be quiet in a moment to let you react, but, and I welcome your reactions, but we talked about different options. Do we cover a portion of it? But it just operationally, it didn't feel like it was working that well. And, to get, again, the most out of this really nice space, and there'll be nice furniture out there with precious little space to remove it and store it up here when the elements turn against us. That it felt like the right call was to cover the patio and have this project so that it could do that.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing I forgot to mention dimensionally, the height.
Yeah.
I think we had talked 9.5 to 10 foot height of that structure. Just so with the wind screens, if we're going with 6 foot wind screens, we don't want the. If
We
we're
don't want
looking
it
at
to
an
be interfering,
8 foot height, then it feels like you're in a glass box.
It's starting to feel like we're enclosing
Right.
Yeah, I don't.
Right.
what was
That's not
supposed
what-
to be a
That's not
rooftop
what we're trying
deck.
to do.
I'm really starting to become concerned about that. You're not talking about putting the vertical shades between the columns, because then I think we're totally enclosing it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the nice thing about this is it also gives you the ability to mount heaters.
And ceiling fans, which you see, I think in that
Mhm.
image I passed around, you see both of those
Yeah.
mounted in there.
So that's the direction we want to take.
Would it involve any lighting?
Have to.
yeah.
Yeah,
Some,
minimally.
TBD. I mean, this is something we wanted
Yeah.
to put on your radar screen. Wouldn't be fair to this process not to raise it, even though I'm probably raising more questions than I'm answering right now.
I guess I go ahead, Gary.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Talk to
the
me.
obvious thing was, it looks like, I'm guessing it would probably be 2 bays. What do you think? Or are you thinking that,
More than that.
Yeah, if you look at the elevation, the north elevation, right?
I assume it'd run the length.
It would run the
glass.
length of
Pretty
that,
much on the left.
where you see the glass.
Oh, well,
windscreen.
okay, here's what I mean. I'm talking about going in the,
You mean the recess?
lengthwise. But I don't know. I mean, I was going to say the obvious thing would be to cut it back enough so that it's not that noticeable from street level, but I know you're trying to get all the real estate you can.
Some
Something,
of the thoughts that we've had on the elevated construction in several places has been to keep the color as sky neutral as we can, rather than contrast.
Okay.
And that helps soften the impact, the visual impact anyway from a distance. So it's a thought to throw out there as part of the discussion on this.
I'll offer that. I think I could be comfortable with a pergola. I think I could be comfortable with a windbreak, but it's going to be a stretch for me to get to both, because it's really starting to feel like an enclosed, and the mass of that is going to be felt from below.
I'd only say, I hear you. We're really, it's very important that this space for all of us is a successful one. And it's a great experience for people who are up there.
I completely agree that those elements are important to that, but in the conversation of, the impact on, or I guess what we're charged with, those two
Yeah, and
elements combined to basically create another story up there. It starts to feel like another story.
clear glass. I get it. But let us refine this more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And
Okay.
Especially if it's
Try
6
to bring
feet
you
of
the
clear
whole
glass,
package.
that's,
try to
effectively
bring
a
you the
wall.
whole
Yeah.
package.
Yeah.
it'd be
And,
beneficial to have a look from the ground,
Yeah.
like a ground view.
Yeah. I mean, this is,
I think you find that we're not here necessarily to challenge you as much as,
No, I understand. I'm not taking it. This is helpful. I'm glad we had this discussion. This is what I hoped for, and you all have been productive. You've I think helped us improve the product at the end of the day, and I think that's what I hope this process is designed to do. And we're kind of at the tail end of it now, and we're getting close to it. But let us refine this. I hear you.
so
I think we can bring you something that's aesthetically pleasing. I also want to make sure when we present the dimensions, we can again relate it to what's next to it.
Right.
Because that's important.
So are we seeing the tops of that pergola? Here?
Yeah, that was an earlier thought, and I moved
Okay.
off that. I will say.
Yeah.
That was an
The
earlier
and the only
thought.
reason we decided to share that tonight was to
Mhm.
give you
It helps.
somewhat of a visual of
gives you
what
a
you can
somewhat
see
of a
from the.
visual.
this-
Yeah.
the street.
Other question is that glass railing modeled here.
It is not. It is
Okay.
not.
I'd like to see that
Right.
and,
right.
you
Yep,
know,
understood.
see the
That's
two
the full
together.
package.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agreed.
Because when I start to look at this and I see the cornice and and again, that's why, like, I think pulling that cornice down is going to work against us. I get it. It's
Mhm.
going to help the views out of there, but now you're going to see more of that glass from the street. So,
More like a closed-in box,
yeah,
like a closed-in floor.
yeah, right. So if you keep the parapet where it is and, the overhang of that parapet is sufficient to kind of screen a lot of that glass from below, I think that could work. You got to show it to us.
Yeah. No, understood. And honestly, we weren't even sure we were going to talk about this tonight. And
No, I'm glad you did.
No, I
I'd
wanted to
rather-
do that.
I'd rather you say like, hey, we're thinking about this and
Yeah.
come back with it rather than, oh, by the way.
You can have mine, Jeff.
Yeah, I got 'em too.
Okay, I'm feeling like we should be at the point where we can make a motion. If there are no more questions or comments or discussion here.
All right, here goes.
Okay, go for it, Todd.
All right, so I'll make a motion to defer the signage details, including lighting materials, and I'll say projection dimensions to a further meeting or to a subsequent meeting. We'll also defer the detailing of the railing on the roof to a subsequent meeting.
Would you like to include anything in that motion regarding the overall layout and size of signage?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've already told them that we're comfortable.
Well, okay,
Yeah, but I thought Jeff's guidance was not to include that until we have all the final details.
It's your choice. You've given them plenty of information that's
Yeah.
already captured in the minutes.
Yep. Okay.
So in my
I
opinion,
think-
if they come back, we would repeat those things, but then add all the details.
yeah, I think it might be helpful to include it as part of the motion.
All right, so the motion will include a COA for the placement and I'll call it the presenting dimensions of the signage.
And configuration.
Yeah, and configuration, right. The motion will include COA that the windows are appropriate as presented. Crystal 2100 series aluminum, dark bronze anodized, glazing to be SunGuard SNX 6267 ultra clear. Canopies are appropriate as Mapes Super Lumideck 8-inch J fascia with bronze finish, 5-foot extension from the face of the building with round downspouts on the face of the building. And if you would like us to consider something else at a subsequent meeting, I think we can,
You just have to
Hear that.
define the size of that.
that downspout. Yeah. I mean, they're so small.
Right.
It's going to be like 2 or 3 inches,
I was gonna say probably.
but I'd like to see those round uncorrugated.
Okay.
Awnings, fabric awnings, the frame will be, or let's say fabric awnings are appropriate as presented with bronze powder coat frames and gray canvas fabric, 4 feet in height and 2 feet projection. The decorative building mounted lighting is approved as presented. The Sentinel fixtures at 3000 Kelvin with 6-degree beam spread up and down light and bronze finish. And the Razor also at 3000 Kelvin, 3-degree up and down beam spread and bronze finish. And finally, the motion should include that the porte cochere is appropriate as presented.
Second.
Great, thank you. And we'll put it to a vote. Craig?
Aye.
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 Okay. Motion carries unanimously, and thank you, everyone, for all your hard work
Thanks,
on
guys.
this.
Yeah, thank you
It's gonna be
guys.
a great
Thank you
project.
very much.
We did.
Yes.
Yes. I got you.
Okay,
Motion to approve the
thank you.
meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Second?
Second.
Okay, great. Any new items?
New members?
Yes.
Working on it.
Can we
Oh,
get some
thank you.
new members up in here?
Is or was 510 flats sprinklered?
Yes.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I was kind of curious about that whole thing too.
Oh, I know it was framed.